Hello YouTube, welcome to my channel. My name's Amy if you didn't already know, or AGPT if you come from Instagram. AGPT stands for Amy Georgina Personal Training, and that actually come from my first business name 5 years ago. It's actually expanded a little bit now. I've gone from like personal training to online coaching, so it's AGPT coaching now for anybody who didn't know that. I wanted to start YouTube because it just gives me a little bit of a bigger place to be able to put more context about myself, be able to do longer videos that are longer than 1 minute to answer any questions or go through a little bit more of like educational side of things, and also because I am doing another bodybuilding prep this year, so it just gives me somewhere to be able to log that and look back on it, because I didn't really have a lot to look back on from last year. So today's video is going to be a little bit more of like a talking one, like an introduction to me, and I also put a anonymous question box on my Instagram for you guys to ask me any questions, and I did get quite a few through actually, so it kind of goes in line with what I wanted to talk about anyway. I kind of wanted to go through where I started from in my own journey in the gym, why I chose to go into bodybuilding, business, how I started my business, how that's evolved, etc., and then a little bit about myself as well. And then these questions that have been asked are kind of along the lines of those anyway, so it'd be quite good to integrate those with what I was going to talk about in this video today. So bear with me today as well. I have tonsillitis, so I've literally just picked up some antibiotics, so my throat is on fire today and I sound like really weird. So this isn't my normal voice, but I don't sound so strange. I am strange actually, but let's just carry on with the questions. So the first question I have is, why did you get into training? And again, these ones are really good because it just gives you a little bit of an overview of my background and like where I came from and stuff. So I started training because I'm not going to go into too much detail and get too deep, but I basically had quite a rough, not childhood, but in school and college, it wasn't my best years. I didn't have great people around me that didn't push me up, didn't support me. So I started the gym I started training in a very negative mind space. It wasn't out of a good place. It was more so out of a bad place. You know, coming from, I started like 6-7 years ago, maybe even longer than that, because my business is 5 years old, so probably longer than that now. I'll have to look back at photos and see what sort of time frame I started. But I basically started because I wanted to be thin, and that was kind of like the in thing at the time. You know, everyone was kind of like under pressure to be the smallest version of yourself. You couldn't have been fat, otherwise you were kind of like, you know, overlooked as the fat one or the big one. And I think coming from that, and also not being around like supportive people and people that didn't necessarily bring me up, like I said, more so put me down quite often. So it come from like quite a negative space. So I actually started the gym. I remember just going in, having absolutely no idea what I was doing. And this is what I say to clients when they first start with me. They're like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, please don't worry. Like, everyone was in that position. You don't just start something and you're not just great at it straight away. So when I first started, it was literally the treadmill, the cross trainer. Actually, the cross trainer was my favorite, and I used to go backwards on it. Why? Because apparently it would make you grow a bum. So weird. So anyway, yeah, I started on like the cardio stuff, like most people do. And it wasn't getting me much, like it wasn't getting me anywhere. If anything, it was just making me really miserable, because I wasn't seeing what I wanted from it. I had no education. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no help, no support. So I really was in a position where I was just going for the sake of it, just to say that I was going to the gym. And again, like, you know, I had like ex-friends and ex-partners and things that weren't very nice to me. So I didn't really have that kind of like extra support, and I continued to go because I felt like I had to, because I felt like I needed to be this person that everybody wanted me to be, and that I had to be and like shape into someone that I really wasn't. So that negative attitude around training continued for quite a few years. Obviously I, you know, joined Instagram and started watching like Instagram videos of girls growing their glutes, but weren't really doing exercises that were particularly growing. So I started doing things like the abductor and standing up on it and doing weird shit on the abductor. So, you know, we've all been there, we've all started in that place, and some of you may already be, you know, starting and in that position and not really knowing, so it's okay. But just know that it does get better with more education that you have, just reach out for the help. But anyway, so yeah, that's where it kind of started, and I continued that for a while until I actually started to get quite poorly and quite ill. Because my mental health wasn't in a great place, I started to get quite physically ill as well. Quite ironically, I used to get tonsillitis, ear infections, because my immune system was so low. I was really tiny. I wouldn't say I had any kind of like eating disorder. I don't want to put like broad statements out there, but I definitely had disordered eating, and that just become from the negative mindset I had around training and food, and the lack of education I had around training as well. So I ran myself into the ground basically. So yeah, I become really poorly, and I think that kind of become the realization to me that what I was doing wasn't benefiting me. It was very much negatively impacting a lot of myself, and again, I wasn't doing it for the right reasons. I was doing it to fit in. I was doing it to be someone that I thought other people wanted me to be, you know, to a point where I used to lie about eating my dinners. So I used to go to my ex-boyfriend's house and tell his mum that I had eaten dinner at home, and tell my mum that I was eating dinner at his, so I ended up not eating anything, and I thought that was the way that I needed to go. Obviously, as I progressed with it and as the years got on, like I said, that realization of me being quite ill and poorly, I realized that I needed to do something about it, and this wasn't the way that was going to help me get to the position I wanted to be or the goals that I particularly had. And I kind of want to touch on this a little bit more because I actually didn't have any goals, like set goals in place. It was just coming from that negative headspace of I need to be really tiny with a really big bum. Now, we know in this day and age that those two things can't always coexist, because to grow muscle we need to eat more, we need to be in a bigger, you know, body fat percentage. Not ridiculous, but we need that body fat to protect us. You know, some people are just genetically lucky that they could have like quite big muscle mass and stay quite lean. Not all of us can be in that position. So obviously, coming from like that, I didn't really have a goal in mind, and that's where things were becoming quite like hard to continue, because I was just going to the gym for the sake of it. So I think having an initial goal is really important, because without it you really don't know what direction you're wanting to go in. So yeah, where I didn't have a goal, it was really difficult for me to understand what I actually wanted from what I was doing, and I just continued to go for the sake of going. I didn't log anything, I didn't track anything, I was just going because I go to the gym. So I haven't always been a personal trainer, I haven't always been an online coach. This isn't something that, you know, magically just arise. Like, it's something I've worked extremely hard for and I've had very many setbacks with. So I did have usual jobs. I've worked shift work, I've worked 8, you know, like normal hours, like 8 till 5, etc. But at this point I was kind of working like in between doing like shift work. I worked in a factory for contact lenses. So I actually used to work with making the contact lenses, and then I was inventory admin. So I just used to make sure that people's orders were all in place and that we had the inventory, etc. So with that job I was working, so one week I would work 2 p.m. till 10 p.m, and then the week after I would work 6 a.m. till 2 p.m. So I was making the gym work around those hours, and I actually like the 2 till 10 p.m. because I was lazy back then. I used to go after work. So I basically was just continuing to run myself into the ground. I didn't have like a routine, I was just going, like I said, for the sake of going. And again, it didn't get me very far, and those things continued for a good few years until I met my now boyfriend. So when I met him, I really still wasn't in like the best of places. I had like come out of my relationship, I was around 18, 19 at the time, and I met him, and he was kind of like, you know, what are you doing? Like, you're going to the gym but you're still under eating, like this isn't helping you get anywhere. And he actually taught me about like macros and calories. Now, I didn't actually have any idea about this before. So he enlightened me to like know that that education around the food side of things, and this taught me in a little bit more detail about how to increase my foods and actually eat to support what I was doing. Because I was still in that negative headspace, I didn't believe him. I just thought he was trying to make me fat and that I was gonna get fat and he'd leave me. So yeah, I really wasn't in a great headspace with all of the food side of things in the training, and it didn't come from a great place. So my education has been over a good few years with help from people who care and love about me and support me. And thankfully, I've been through motions of that love and support. I've had counselling, I've gone and, you know, helped myself, push myself out of that really negative headspace. And that's what's got me to where I am today. I think you just need to understand that if there is an underlying issue, you need to address it to make sure that you are helping yourself. No one else is coming to save you. And I think that's like something that I've really learned across the last few years. Like, you need to want it yourself, have a goal, have something you really want to work towards. And if there is underlying issues from the past and things that you may, you know, be struggling with, you need to reach out for that help to make sure that you can continue to push with your progression. I know that was quite a long one, but it just gives you a bit of an insight because it's been so long, like there's so many years since I first started training. Obviously there's a lot that's happened in between that. But my next question that I have is, what made you want to be a PT? So as I, like I said, I met my boyfriend, he like educated me a little bit more into it. I started to gain like a little bit of weight, but that was good weight, and started to gain muscle, and really I like started to understand the process of training, logging, being consistent with my training, not chopping and changing things up all of the time. And this was like around about a year or so. And then I actually went into my gym one day, and I have like a little routine. So I go in and I used to put my stuff on the side, like my gym bag, and have a wee before I start my workout. And on the side was like a little like advertisement, like a little like leaflet, I suppose, and they were advertising for female PTs. And I first initially looked at it and thought, like, what are you thinking? Like, that's stupid, you couldn't be a PT. But I actually then inquired with one of the PTs there. It was Leah at the time. And yeah, so I spoke to her about it and said, you know, like, how does it work? Like, what do I do? And from there, it kind of just planted a little seed in my head to be like, you know what, you've come from such a crap background with training, like such a negative place. Wouldn't it be so brilliant if you could help other people get past that and teach other people that there is a light at the end of the tunnel? So yeah, I think that's what, like, that was where it mainly come from, and it just evolved from there. Like, I did my PT course, I was working like still my full-time job and still training to be a PT, and I was traveling like from Southampton to Bournemouth every other weekend to do like my in-person training and my in-person education. And I did that for a good few weeks, and then I made the decision to like leave my old job and go into full-time PT because it was just getting a little bit too much. Basically, when you first start at Pure Gym, that's where I first started as a PT, you have to work shifts a long time actually trying to get clients, and then also I still had a full-time job at the time as well, so it was getting a little bit too much. So I decided to make the leap to just full-time PT, and that is how I become a PT. And my morals and my just the fire in my belly is still there from the very beginning, and I'm smiling so much because my job seriously makes me so happy, and I get a little bit emotional of like how many people I've helped along the way. Like I said, this year, like my business is 5 years old, and that fire in my belly is still there because when I meet new people and they come from like, you know, from a very negative headspace and I help them change that, it makes me so incredibly proud and so happy that I'm able to still help other people. And almost like that inner child in myself is always still comforted because I'm helping that through other people as well. So that's how I become a PT, and that is why I'm still a PT. I do have quite a few questions actually, so I might do, because this video is probably already long because I yabber on for ages, what I might do is do like a second YouTube answering the other questions into like a little bit more detail, the ones that maybe aren't so much like about my background and what I'm doing at the moment. But I had a few of the same sort of asked questions about my bodybuilding. So like, what made you want to start bodybuilding? What got you into bodybuilding, etc. So basically the reason why I started bodybuilding So during the first lockdown, I was still at home. We were training, me and my brother, and we basically just kept it going. Then I went back to the gym, everything opened up, continued training through there. And then we obviously went into the second lockdown, and I actually had my own flat at that point with my boyfriend. And things were like weird because you were so uncertain about what was going on. And I think like a lot of people will agree with me with this, that we then sort of lost sight of our goals because it was like, I don't even know what's happening with life, let alone the goals that I have during my fitness. But because I am who I am, and you know, I have a business, I have clients relying on me, I am kind of like someone that people look up to in terms of my clients. So I had to keep something going. Like I had to make sure that I was keeping myself intact so that the things that I was teaching other people, you know, it wasn't contradicting. It wasn't like I was not doing what I was teaching other people to do, basically, you know, like, oh, you know, eat this or do this, and you know, train like, you know, this and etc. And I wasn't doing that myself. So I did continue training. I had like, I bought some weights, I had like resistance bands, and things like that, so that I continued my training whilst I was at home. And I was still doing like the Zoom PT calls with people from home, making sure they were still doing their PT sessions and classes and things. But because we were at home, because there was like limited, obviously where I wasn't PTing in person, I burned quite a lot of like, my activity levels really high when I'm doing my PT sessions, because I set up their weights, I put them away, I'm showing them what to do. So when that was cut back and I wasn't able to be doing that each day, my steps were a lot lower. And you know, my boyfriend was still working, he was a lorry driver, so I was home most of the time, sometimes on my own. So going for a walk on my own and going for a walk in the evenings on my own sometimes isn't something I wanted to do. Put my hands up with that, my steps were really difficult to achieve. So I did start putting on some body fat that I didn't really want. And I actually then, I continued training for a bit, then reached out to my current coach, Meg Sylvester. And I think it was like, what are we now, 2023, 2022? It must have been around March 2021. And I reached out to Meg, and basically it was on a lifestyle basis. So I just reached out to her because it was someone I looked up to. I watched a lot of her videos. I loved her like passion and her dedication to work, and her dedication to her business, and her relationship with her clients was, you know, something I really looked up to, and something that I love, because my clients are really important to me. And their goals are really super important to me. So I wanted someone to care for me like I care for my clients. So I started with Meg, and we just started off as, like I said, a lifestyle basis. So I was given a meal plan. I got my food in a better place, like I was eating more. But it was really bizarre because I was eating more and I was like, what the hell? I want to lose a little bit of body fat. Why am I eating more? So yeah, we started with that. I did actually lose a little bit of weight. I was obviously being able to have someone to check in with. I had that accountability with her, someone to, you know, talk to if I needed it, like if I had any problems or I needed any like help with anything. So she helped me just get into a position where I felt a little bit more comfortable with myself. And the more that I started checking in with her, the more I obviously was opening up to the bodybuilding world. Now, I am still very naive to the bodybuilding world, and I still don't really know a lot about it, coming from like an education point of view. So it was something that was like crazy to me. I was like, wow, this is so big. There's so many people who do this. Like, they look amazing. I could never do that. Like, that's something I can never do. Like, I can never look like that. Well, so I started checking in with her with like some bodybuilding style poses. And from there, Meg said to me, she said, you know, you could actually have quite a lot of potential in this. And this could be something that you could be really good at. So again, it planted a little seed in my head. And for me as a person, I'm very driven. Nothing will stop me. There has been many occasions where life has really tried to, but I am a big believer in those things, that they are things that they're to teach you, and for you to evolve from, not to stop you. So with that negative mindset, that always stemmed from like the previous me, like you could never do that, like no one's going to accept you doing that. So what we did is Meg suggested that I did like a fake prep. So we had a good sort of like half a year to a year with just being nice and consistent with things, building up my food, building my relationship with food because it still wasn't fantastic, and having a coach for the first time, like a proper coach for the first time. So we built that up. Then we did a like fake prep, and it was basically for a photo shoot. And this for me was so bizarre, like something on the end of the scale of something I would have never done and never thought I would be able to do. Like, what, me doing a photo shoot, doing a gym photo shoot? No way. But I did it, and that was something that was like really, really powerful for me in terms of like my sort of like my confidence in myself, because I'm still not the most confident person. I'm confident in me, I'm confident in the person that I am, but we all have doubts, you know, we all like, you know, worry about things and over worry about people's opinions and stuff. So I did that photo shoot, I really enjoyed it, and it showed me that I had the discipline to do a really harsh diet. It was only for like 12 weeks, but it was something I've never done before. I've always come from a really tiny background, you know, being really small, having to put on weight, put on muscle. I've never had to experience dieting, so it's something really different for me, and it was a really big eye-opener in terms of like my discipline with myself, and that I can stay on top of a goal and I can push myself with something. So we did the photo shoot prep, and then that kind of opened my eyes into, you know, you could possibly do this, you could do a bodybuilding competition, and you could do a bodybuilding prep. Like, this is something that you could possibly do. And obviously after the photo shoot, that's something me and Meg spoke about. So that's when I entered my first natural bodybuilding show, and that was last year, September 2021. So I did my first bodybuilding prep. I'll put up some photos somewhere, and this, I'm going to try and not get emotional, because every time I watch the videos back and every time I talk about it, I get really, really emotional. And that is, I know it sounds really stupid, but that is literally just because of where I've come from, the mindset I used to be in, and how much that really, really pushed me out of my comfort zones, and really showed me that I can do anything I put my mind to. Getting a little bit emotional. But yeah, it was more so just because it really showed me that, you know, the people that used to put me down and tell me that I couldn't do things, or I wasn't good enough for stuff, and I wasn't good enough for them, and you know, all of those horrible negative things that you constantly go around in your mind. And then doing this and proving to myself as the biggest thing, but proving to other people that I could stay so disciplined and that I could do something that is absolutely out of this world and crazy, was just mind-blowing to me. So I actually ended up winning my first show, and to me that was like, I don't even have the words to explain to you how mind-blowing that was. So yeah, I really enjoyed it, and being in a bikini, little sparkly bikini, half naked on a stage in front of loads and loads of people was something that never even crossed my mind. And then I went and did it, and I won, and I just still can't, like, it's like, you know, so many months on now, and I still just can't believe that actually even happened. So yeah, that's how I got into bodybuilding, and I absolutely love it. And the reason why I love it is because it's taught me so many things about myself. It's taught me discipline, it's taught me how to actually stay on top of training, it's taught me a good relationship with food. Now, I know this is going to be different for everyone, because the bodybuilding prep in itself isn't healthy, and it isn't like, you know, the best place you want to be, but it's only for a short period of time, it's not forever. And I think it's really allowed me to understand that, you know, gaining weight and gaining body fat is a good thing, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad and that you're going to, you know, be frowned upon. So yeah, that's why I got into bodybuilding and why I continue to do bodybuilding, because I absolutely love it. I love the community that it brings. You know, people are so lovely, so supportive, and it's not just, it's not about like the day itself, like the competition itself. Like, I really wasn't bothered about how I placed or what I did. I went in there with like, I just want to do this for me, and I just want to stand on that stage and prove to little Amy that she could do it. And yeah, so I just wanted to show her that she could do something that people didn't believe that she could do. And coming first was like mind-blowing. What a wuss. But yeah, so that's about me. I have come from a very negative mindset, as you can tell, because I wouldn't have got so upset, but I'm not upset. I'm more like, it just brings back emotions that I had on that day of the show day, that like, you've done it, like you've shown yourself that you can do something that's really hard, and prove to yourself that you can do something that's really difficult and continue to do so. So that's where I've come from, that's where I've evolved from. There's lots of other questions, but I don't want to make this like really long. So what I'm going to do is kind of do like a back off of this, so that I can answer those other questions in a little bit more detail. But yeah, that is me. I am Amy, I am AGPT. I hope that you've kind of enjoyed this. I know it's a bit more of like a plain boring one, like just talking, but yeah, just helps you guys get to know me a little bit more, and a place for me to be able to like log my progress, and also ask, like I said, answer any questions in a bit more detail, and maybe go through things in a little bit more detail. I know I've got like YouTube shorts and like my Instagram videos and stuff, but sometimes it's really difficult to get like educational things over in just 1 minute. So yeah, I am new to this, so whatever to do, like, subscribe, share, whatever needs to happen to the end of these videos. But I hope you've enjoyed. I hope you've enjoyed me yabbering on, and I will be back for another episode with answering those other questions. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.